So good evening. My name is Richard Holton from ProHas Health and Safety, and I'm joined tonight by John Parry of Parry's Fleet Services. And tonight we're going to talk and chat all things fleet safety. So good evening, John. How are you?
Good evening, Richard. I'm good, thanks. How are you doing?
Excellent. Yeah, very good, mate. Right, thank you very much. So do you know what? Tell me a little bit about how you've come to end up doing this kind of line of work. So I don't know. Tell me how you've ended up doing this.
Right. Nobody in school plans to go into driver training and being a driving instructor. It's something that you end up getting into later on. I had got a truck license. I was a truck driver for a while. I left that, went into being a bus driver. But after you get a number of people trying to rob your money and trying to assault you and just trying to get on the bus for free, it got a little bit too much. So I wanted something to benefit me more, and becoming a driving instructor was the way forward. So I trained to become a driving instructor. And then after a couple of years of teaching learner drivers, I looked at what else I can do. And then helping businesses and fleet training is pretty much where I went from there. So I've got Parry Fleet Services based on improving myself and then looking forward to how to improve businesses.
So how long have you been doing this now then?
I've been doing this about 15 years now.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, 15 years.
And where does it take? Does it take you all over the place? Is it local to you or?
I work national. I can work all over the country. I've done work in Cromer in Norfolk. I'm based up in the northwest. I've done work around the Lake District, over in Skegness, Devon and Cornwall. So I have travelled around. I've done a lot for a large company in London. So yeah, I do get to travel around.
Okay, and just briefly, I know we're going to touch on it, but what type of vehicles? What we're talking about?
So fleet training is looking after businesses who have got fleet cars, so they lease a fleet of vehicles. Some companies will have the pool cars, so it's just one car sat at their business premises that many people use. We've got the grey fleet drivers, so it's people who have got their own vehicles, but they're using it as part of their work.
Okay.
And van drivers, because anything above a van going into 7.5 ton, they are covered by CPC. So we look after the smaller size vehicles.
Okay, so we hear, I mean, obviously with HGVs, LGVs, we talk about CPC and the drive, and we know those drivers undergo a lot of assessment training and regular training.
Yeah.
What about the company car drivers? What about the van drivers? What about, all those people that miss out on that or don't have anything? Do businesses need to do that?
They should do that, yes. And to be compliant within the health and safety, they must be doing it, yes. The HGVs, the buses, they've got the CPC, so that takes care of that. They have to do their certain amount of hours each year. But there's nothing sort of set in stone apart from that they should be doing regular training for fleet drivers.
Okay.
So fleet training came about mainly from, do you remember the Hatfield train disaster?
Yes. Yeah.
Big train disaster. So then from that, the Health and Safety Executive put together the Corporate Manslaughter and Homicide Act 2007.
Yeah.
So anybody using a vehicle for work has to be assessed and trained on it to make sure that they're safe and competent to use that vehicle for part of their work. So that's where the compliance comes in. Businesses now have to ensure that when they are taking on staff, that they're good enough to be driving that vehicle for their purposes and their duties, whatever they may be doing, maybe sales, maybe traveling around the country, carrying equipment to go and show off to their potential customers. It could just be as simple as taking the post to the post office on their lunch break.
I was going to say, yeah, because there's definitely that, as you said, we'll just nip down the road, nip to the cafe, nip to the post office or the bank, and borrow the manager's, the director's car, and you've put perhaps a young person in a nice powerful car just to do that trip, and something happens. So they should still have some kind of assessments and training.
Yeah, to make sure that they can drive that car, because you might get somebody who's passed the driving test and gone to work but never got a car, maybe 10 years, 20 years since they passed the driving test and never driven in that time, but can be jumped straight into an executive car and drive down the road. It's very high powered. They're not used to it. Give it too much on that accelerator, they could lose control and crash because they've not got the experience in driving that vehicle. Right. Then that liability falls right back onto the company then.
So what about the kind of documentation kind of side, like road risk policies, road risk assessments, and all those? Obviously, they need those kind of things in place as well, I guess.
Yeah. So to start off with, the company should have a good, robust handbook for the drivers. So they know what the standards the companies are setting. They understand what they're expected to do as a driver, as well as following the rules of the highway code. But also, if a company's got a really good, robust policy system in place, they're covering their duty of care, they're looking after their staff, and the staff know the standards that they're being set to drive at, and then should be keeping themselves safe on the roads. They should also have all their fleet insurance, servicing, and all that on file in the insurance. But also, if it's a grey fleet driver, that's their own vehicle being used. So the company should also keep on file the insurance, the MOTs, the servicing, to make sure that their vehicle is meeting the standards that's in the handbook, even though it's their own vehicle being used for that work.
Okay, so I think grey fleet's probably an area that gets missed so many times in businesses, and businesses definitely forget that they have that responsibility for the grey fleet driver, although it's that person's car. But yeah, so checking the license, obviously. How often? Twice a year? Once a year?
License check should be done every 6 months.
Okay.
And it's not just taking the license and photocopying it. It is about getting in touch with the DVLA. You can do it online or you can phone them up. As long as that you've got a mandate to say that it can be checked by that driver, or get them to give permission to the DVLA to talk about their driving license. Because the card now doesn't show the points on there, or any fines or any disqualifications. So you shouldn't just take a photocopy of the license and put it in the drawer. It is really about checking it. There was a vehicle just down the road from here the other day, stopped at the side of the road. It was delivering pizza, but he only had personal insurance, so it was social, domestic, and pleasure. It wasn't for business use. So they towed the car away and crushed the car.
So business need to make sure that it's business insurance for those grey fleet drivers as well.
Yes, definitely, yes. Because if it's not there, then they will take the car away, and then the driver's then without the car. But if they kill somebody on the road and they've not got the insurance, the company then will be held liable for that.
Okay, yeah. So I just think that's definitely an area that a lot of businesses kind of forget and don't realise they need to have in place. So hopefully people will take that and understand that what they need to do going forward. So benefits to providing training. I mean, obviously someone can say, "Oh, I'm an experienced driver. I've been driving for how many years?" And or a young person's just passed, so obviously they think they kind of the bee's knees, don't they, and what they're doing, how they're driving. So what's the benefits of having a driver trainer sit with them?
Right. So the benefits on two sides here. There's benefits for the company. One, it covers their compliance and their duty of care. If they provide their fleet drivers with fuel cards, then obviously they want their drivers driving as fuel efficient as possible. So if they're having training and they're being taught eco-driving, especially if we're going into EVs now, people are going to be having fleets of EV cars, electric vehicles.
Yeah.
So they're going to get their range in the morning. They sit and they go, right, I've got 300 miles. How can I make that go further? So by driving properly and having that training, they can make that range go further. So it's saving them on fuel. On a petrol diesel engine, you can save anywhere between 8 and 15% on your fuel allowance per driver.
Wow.
Also, that range there does depend on how that driver continues to drive after the training. There was a company that I went to train for. A driver kept crashing a few times, so the insurance went up £15,000, and they said, "Oh, we need to sort this out." And after the driver had a full day training, the insurance company reduced it back down by £10,000. So there can be some dramatic insurance fees saved by having driver training as well.
So insurance companies, if you can demonstrate to your insurance company you're doing this, this, and this, then that could ultimately reduce some of your costs.
So yes. And insurance companies may even ask, have you done training for your drivers if it's a fleet policy? They will go through things like you shouldn't have anyone driving who's under 25. They may be only allowing them to be insured if they've only got up to 6 points on the license. But if they've done training, then that may give them a discount as well.
Okay.
Especially if it's gone up through a number of incidents, then having that proactive look at the driver and making sure that they are trained and they fix the issues, the insurance companies then will give some discounts.
So if you take a scenario, maybe you got, I don't know, a business that's got 12 guys on the road, company cars, but they have one or two that continue to have just little bumps, little scrapes, and so on. But they're not doing anything about it. They just kind of let it crack on. But no one else other than those two are having these incidents. What would you do? How would you approach that with them? What, in terms of what conversation, what kind of training would you do with them, and so on?
Right. So first of all, we'd look at what their incidents are, but we'd look holistically too to see if there's any near misses being reported, because drivers are meant to report near misses too. And if you're monitoring that, you can start to see patterns happen. And also, if you can see patterns happen, you can intervene before it becomes a fatal accident.
Yeah.
So if somebody's having lots of little accidents and you can actually monitor that and you're seeing that in your records, if we come in and we have a look at that driver and we see what type of incidents are happening, we take them out on the road, we look at what they're doing. It might just be that they need to look further down the road and plan a little bit better. Maybe just reduce that speed a little bit earlier, and that gets rid of them near misses. A lot of near misses are done as well through, or little bumps are done through reversing too. So it could just be looking at slow speed maneuvers, and if we can fix them, making sure that they're doing proper observations. Like the small car drive vans, you've got no back windows, so people rely on the mirrors. So if we get them to get out and have a look before they start reversing, that will give them more observations of what's there, prevent them having them little bumps, and then the bumps will soon then stop.
Okay, so I mean, just on that, so we talk about cameras and we talk about using the mirrors and getting out and walking around, but do we get them to do? Would you advise doing a bit of a pre-drive kind of check like you do with a forklift truck piece of equipment to check your vehicles before you leave each day, or?
Yeah, the daily vehicle checks, and many drivers don't do these. We go through them in the initial training, and it should be part of the induction when you get in a new vehicle, is what daily checks you should be doing. So it's the fuel, oil, water, electrics, the tires, making sure there's no damage to the vehicle. And these are daily checks, and we go through all that when we're doing the training. And companies can actually ensure drivers are doing that. You could get the apps that will actually monitor that with the telematics system that they've actually done it, or you can just print out a simple vehicle check card,
Okay.
and that they actually tick off to say what they've done. They write down the tire tread depths to say that they've actually checked them, and that way they've got that on file there to say that the drivers are actually checking the vehicles properly. And if you're using the vehicle for work, that should be done daily.
Daily, right? Okay, that's interesting. So you touched on telematics then. I mean, just give us an overview. What is telematics? What can it be used for?
Telematics nowadays can cover a vast variety of different things. It can go to telling you the appreciation of your vehicles. If you monitor it right, you can check to see if all your vehicles are being used. Have you actually leased too many vehicles? But it's also about monitoring the drivers. Now, some will just monitor the fuel use. Some will monitor how much they brake, how much they accelerate, how much they're on the cornering, and it will monitor that. And maybe, for example, give you like the traffic light system: green for good driving, amber for poor driving, red for dangerous driving.
Right.
So the telematics can then monitor that. But just solely relying on that data, people can sometimes go down the wrong path there of seeing somebody going into the amber and taking them into the office and saying, look, you're not driving so good, and use it as a disciplinary type of thing. It shouldn't really be like that. You should use it as an educational tool to help the drivers get better, and share that information with your driver trainers. So that way we know what we've got to work with. We can already see where the drivers are going wrong. And then when we're out there, we know if they're trying to put on a show and not show us where they go wrong, we've got that information there to back us up. So we can use it to help them, to develop them, to change their driving style. And then you should be able to see after the training how that then follows through with the telematics.
So again, I mean, I've seen businesses on occasions I've seen people post and say, "Oh, what's the best camera to have in the car? I want to watch what they're doing and how they're driving and so on." Now, for me, absolutely use telematics, use it to help the educational, behavioural safety and so on. But I think it's initially is talking to them, isn't it? And make sure you've got the policies, the training, and
Yeah.
understanding, how good a driver perhaps they are before you start putting cameras and all kinds of things in vehicles. I think it's a bit of both, really, I suppose. But for me, it's about talking. I don't know what you think about
Yeah.
that.
If companies just go out blanket, we're putting telematics in all the vehicles, we're putting cameras in, external, internal, that will get everyone's back up and the drivers will rebel against that. But if you actually talk to all your staff before you actually do it, get them on board, say, look, it's not there as a disciplinary procedure. It's not there to tell you off when you're doing things wrong. It's there to protect you, because a lot of incidents are from how other drivers are reacting and you don't have time to react to it. So a lot of it there is to back up and support the drivers and to be on your side rather than be against you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And like you say earlier, a massive cost savings, not only fuel, but with the insurance companies, perhaps with the train, you can demonstrate you're doing that. It's going to benefit the company as well as making it a lot safer for the drivers out there as well, and third parties as well, I guess.
True. And if the drivers are having less incidents, there's less absence from work. So they've got their staff in work more often, so there's less sick days. And they're not paying people for staff at home.
Business companies will love that. Cost saving, saving money, KPIs will be better. Yeah. Absolutely brilliant. So, I mean, how often would you recommend that training takes place? What's your thoughts on that?
Right. So training should be consistent throughout somebody's employment within their company. So it should start off, basically, if they're going to be driving for the work, pre-employment training. So have a look or an assessment to see what they're like before they get the job. And then once they've got the job, you can then do the driving license check and the induction training and the initial training there. The driving license check, again, as we mentioned before, every 6 months. If they get points, then reduce that every 3 months and implement training if they get points. So you might check every 6 months and then think they've got some points. Let's bring training in now. So you're doing training every 6 months. Ideally, training would like to fall yearly. So you've had the initial training, then a year later, you do a remedial, and then a remedial a year later. Some companies will let it go up to every 5 years. So it then tends to be down to the more mileage they do, the higher risk they are. So the more training they need, if they're higher risk.
Okay. So I guess time of year now, the weather's pretty bad out there, icy mornings, foggy, and so on. What's your recommendations or things drivers should consider when they're out driving in the dark, cold mornings, and so on?
Right, planning is one. Planning and timing. Give yourself time to get to where you're going.
Okay.
Plan your journey. So check out the route. Make sure there's no floods. Make sure there's no weather warnings. Have your emergency kit with you. So it's your warm blankets, extra clothes, food, water, a torch, a fully charged mobile phone, which is not on whilst you're driving. It should be off and in the glove box.
Yeah.
So you're not using your phone whilst driving. Maybe a shovel in case you get stuck in the snow. Tires are so important. Tires are not as effective at cutting through water when they're below 3 millimeters. So if your tires are down below 3 millimeters, see about getting them changed.
Okay.
But planning and timing is the most important one. Slow your speeds down a little bit, look further down the road, plan what you're doing. Don't be in a rush to get to where you're going. Allow yourself that extra 10 minutes in the morning to de-ice your windows properly. Make sure they're not fogged up. You've not got that little porthole in front of you that you're looking through. As you're going down the road, you've got a nice clean window. All your lights are cleared all the snow off the car if you're in a snowy area. We have just seen on social media that there's been some snow in the area. So make sure there's no snow on the top of your car or anything like that.
Yeah, so we've seen that. I've seen it come when they brake and the snow all then comes down.
Yeah, or the hard acceleration and it falls off the back of the car onto the vehicle behind.
Absolutely. And as you said, the little porthole just scrape a little bit off so they can kind of see through that as they go down the road until it all eventually defrosts, which is not ideal. So,
no.
Okay. So I mean, summarize. So basically training, massive, obviously, safety kind of benefits from it for both drivers, businesses, and so on. From a corporate point of view, responsibilities, make sure they've got the policies in place. Huge cost saving, which, as I said, business owners should be happy about that. If they can do that, it's worth investing in that long term. They could save some massive amounts of money. Can you support businesses with policies and things like that as well?
I do have a company handbook I've just finished writing, so that'll be going onto my website soon.
Okay.
So yes, I can support businesses with a car and van company handbook. And I've also got connections within telematics, and I've also got connections within insurance. I've also got connections with accident management firms. So if there's a company who's just starting up, who's got nothing, has nowhere to go,
Yeah.
then I can put them in touch with all the relevant people. We can make sure that they completely covered with compliance, and making sure that they're all good and ready to go. And obviously the businesses that are established, if they've got high insurance premiums for lots of crashes, we can see about connecting them with our insurance contacts, and they will probably give discounts if they know they've been having training from my company.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, listen, thank you for your time. I think some really great points there you've told us about, and hopefully when people watch this back, they'll be able to implement some of this to their business. Getting contact with myself, get in contact with yourself, and see how we can support them in improving their safety, fleet safety, and ensuring they meet their responsibilities, I guess, throughout their business, particularly with those grey drivers. And obviously, benefit, you can also save money, business owners. So have a look at it. So thank you for tonight, John. We will post your details at the bottom so everyone can have a look at that and see how you can support their businesses as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.